This is a story about how I got a reputation for being really stupid with some of my relatives. When I was a kid, I was raised in a town, but a lot of my relatives they lived in Missouri. They always said Missouri, not Missouri, and they lived around farms. And for me, farms were frightening. They were scary places. They were not familiar at all to me. For example, horses. I was, tell you the truth, I was terrified of horses. In fact, one time I got kicked by a horse. Um, it was my own fault. There was this cute girl. She was on the horse, and I was switching the horse in the butt with like a long, slender twig. I guess I thought this was a really cool behavior. The girl would probably like me for doing this, and the horse got really irritated, and it kicked me. It kicked me so hard and so fast, I didn't even know what was happening. I flew through the air. I bet I went 6 feet before I came to a stop. I didn't do some of the really stupid things. I never rode a heifer, for example. I never peed on the electric fence. So, that was something. But as far as my relatives were concerned, they just never knew what dumb thing I was going to do next. One time, my cousins and I, we were, it's like it was an old railroad, and it no longer was in use. It had been pulled to pieces. There were just like pieces of the track left and the railroad ties. And there was one of those big cement things, or I don't even know what they're called. They're so the train can kind of like go underneath them. And I'm up on top of it, and I decided to just jump all the way down. I don't know, it's like 5 or 6 feet, and I used to be kind of famous for how far I could drop, like I would fall out of trees and things like that. Anyway, so I jumped down there to the where the track is, and I felt a little funny. I felt a little unusual sensation, and I looked down and I noticed a very bizarre thing. When I would take a step, this piece of wood would come with me. I would take a step, and the piece of wood would just come right along with me. And I looked a little more closely at my tennis shoe, and there was a spike, like a 10 penny nail, and it was just coming right up through my tennis shoe. I had jumped right down onto a spike and run it through my foot. That was maybe the only time in my life that I ever really felt, close to Jesus. Um, though I think the thing that really confirmed the family that I was, deficient mentally was my grandfather. He bought a flashlight. It does not seem like a big deal, but my grandfather was really poor, and he lived in this little tiny house. I think it had like 3 rooms and an outhouse. And so anything that he bought was kind of a big deal. So he bought this long, long flashlight. And I used to hate the outhouse. Man, there were like wasps living in that outhouse, and it had three holes, a 3 hole outhouse, and there was like Daddy Bear, the big hole, and then there was like Mommy Bear, the middle-sized hole, and then there was like Baby Bear, the littlest hole. And when I was a kid, I would go out there. Of course, I would use the baby hole, but I was getting a little bit bigger, so I thought I would use the mama hole. And I don't know if you've ever been in an outhouse or if you've ever looked down in those holes, but I mean, it's disgusting. It's horrible what's down inside those holes. But anyway, I'm sitting there in the mama hole, and it's nighttime. See, so that's why you need the flashlight. You bring the flashlight so you can see where you're going because it's so dark. And I set the flashlight down beside me, and I'm worrying, am I going to fall into that hole? Because I'm not big enough for that hole, but I'm just sort of wishing I was. And while I'm thinking about that, the flashlight, it just rolls right into the daddy bear hole, and it falls right down there, and it like lands, so the light is sort of shining up, and I don't know, it's like 6 feet down or something. There's just no way that I'm gonna ever be able to get that flashlight. So I have to go back, and I have to tell my family, my grandma, my grandpa, that I have lost Grandpa's flashlight, and I have to, tell him where it is. And the whole family, they go out to the outhouse and they all look, and there's the flashlight, and there's the light, coming up. And, it takes like 2 days before the batteries finally run out of juice. And everyone in my family, the extended family, they come and they oh, come and look what Gary did to Grandpa's flashlight, and so they're, they all go out there and they look at that. And that was, more confirmation. And oh, like my grandma, she gave me one time for my birthday, she gave me a knife. And the first thing I did was I carved my initials in one of her trees, so she said, so she took the knife away from me because I was too stupid to even have a knife. And one time I dumped out she had a whole big barrel of rainwater, and it had like little mosquito larvae floating at the top of it. And I thought, well, maybe she'll like me better if I'll just dump out this whole barrel of rainwater. And she'll think, well, what a nice boy, he got rid of those mosquito larvae. And so I dumped the whole thing out. And of course, then I find out that my grandma actually uses the rainwater to wash her hair. There's something soft, I guess, about rainwater, and it's really good for washing your hair. And she saved that all up. I don't know, I guess she just scoop off those mosquito larvae. And Gary has now, dumped out all of Grandma's, hair washing water. So she went to my mom, and she said she told my mom that she thought maybe I was retarded. I don't know if my mom defended me or not. And the only time I ever ingratiated myself with him, my grandfather, he kept bees, and you'd have to go out there with him. And my grandfather was just fearless with these bees. They'd crawl all over him, and he didn't care. He didn't wear any of those suits. If they were kind of agitated, he might use a little smoke. I guess smoke makes bees go to sleep. But most of the time, he just moved slowly and calmly. So if you went out with him, it was terrifying. And all the cousins would do this, and it was sort of a rite of passage. And so finally, I did it too. I went out there with him, and I got stung, and I was just scared to death. My cousins had told me, if you run, the bees will be alerted, and they will come after you, and you will be stung 1,000 times, and you will die. So you cannot run, you cannot panic. So, bees are crawling on my hand, I'm sweating, and I'm just terrified. And a second bee stung me, and I'm just wanting to scream, and my grandfather fills the bucket with honey and everything. And we get back, and I am so happy, to get away from those bees. And in the house, he's unloading all the honey and everything. And I hear him tell my grandma, boy got stung twice, didn't even flinch. And to this day, that is the best compliment that I have ever received.